नाही, नंतर करतो. Tamam. Tamam. रखो ही मेरे ड्रॉर में। रखिए। जोरात कर. काय झालं आता? जरा आवाज आवाज कमी कमी झाली काय? किती दिवस झाले चालू आहे आठवड्यात? ये कर
Good morning. Good morning and warm welcome to you all. I'm Vaibhav, your host for today. Our topic for today is climate change considerations in ISO standards and understanding. It shall be taken by Ms. Smita Venkatesh. She is a management consultant, auditor, and trainer. She shall cover what is the ISO climate change amendment, why was it introduced, what are the consequences if you do not address the change, what are the major amendments in ISO 9001, ISO 14001, ISO 45001, and ISO 27001 standard, and followed by question and answer session. Our agenda for today is virtual inauguration by Dr. Sundar Kataria, invoking the blessing of deity, chanting of Gayatri Mantra, introduction of speaker, presentation by Ms. Smita Venkatesh, question and answer session, and last closing session. About Sadgun Sangh. Sadgun Sangh conceived and led by Dr. Sundar Kataria, driven with the mission to elevate the quality, safety, and environmental awareness levels of industry. Sadgun Sangh is a series of educative, informative events aiming to illuminate professionals on possible solutions to current issues of industry and economy. Let's know more about Dr. Sundar Kataria, designation and organization, Chairman and Managing Director, International Certification Services Private Limited, academic qualification, Mechanical Engineer, AMIE, Honorary Doctorate, Business Management. His experience are nuclear. He started his career in building India's first nuclear power plant at Rawat Bhata, Kota, Rajasthan. Oil and gas, EIL. He contributed in developing India's first oil and gas field at Bombay High since its inception, DNV. He was head of industry and offshore development with DNV for 2 decades, ICS. He is founder of first Indian conformity assessment and inspection body known as the International Certification Services Private Limited, which is provider of total quality solution under single umbrella with wide spectrum of services. Achievements awards. Lifetime Achievement Award for Nes Corcol received several national and international awards. So now I request Dr. Kataria to virtually inaugurate the session.
शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
Please join us for the recitation of the Gayatri Mantra. Introduction of our today's keynote speaker. Designation and organization, management consultant, auditor and trainer. Her academic qualification, BE Electronics, post-graduation course in cyber law, masters in business law, NLSIU, environmental management course from IISc. Area of specialization and experience are POSH consultant and IC external member, life member, Quality Circle Forum of India, QCFI, resource person and trustee, Institute for Media Studies and Research, IMSR Bengaluru, member, Institutional Ethics Committee for Clinical Drug Trials, So please welcome Smita ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Vaibhav. A very good morning to all of you on this warm monsoon Saturday. So, do we start it, Vaibhav?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we are talking today on a very, I think, a very trendy subject, I would like to call it as, because we had known about climate change from quite long, but it has hit us very hard now because we were trying to push it, to the background all the time. It has been trying to, call out to us to be careful, to be patient, and also be sensitive to the world around us and the world we are living in. But today we are standing actually on the boundaries, which Sir David Attenborough very famously calls it as a breaking of the boundaries, right? We till yesterday we were talking about bringing the temperature or controlling the temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius, but we have already crossed it. So the new correction or the revision, as we say in our standards language, is 2 degrees Celsius, right? So this is where we stand, and it may not look very dangerous for us yet, because most of us, maybe the people who are here on this forum today, on this platform, might have literally not seen the effect of the climate change yet, right? So there are but people on an everyday basis, we see it, and we are getting to see the visuals also of how the climate is, it is just trying to take its own place, that's all, because we have encroached enough on it in all ways. So going by this, the standards body also took a very conscious decision, and they joined hands with the United Nations developmental goals and the United Nations itself, and brought about amendments to the standards. Because when we talk about climate change, I think one and the only we should say the reason behind this climate change is industrialization, right? And when we talk about industries and industrialization, then standards are a equal part in it, right? We go hand in hand. So that's when the standards, the ISO standards, have taken a conscious decision to join hands and bring all of us to the forefront of understanding and mending our ways for climate change. So I would like to share my small presentation out here on this. And this subject is a very new subject to all of us, and it's very new to me also. So, and in the forum, we have a lot of experience brains out here. So I request all of you to join me in this deliberation. I would like to call this as a deliberation, and I'm presenting what I have understood, because climate change is such a vast subject and such a very a confusing concept, right? The first of the option would be that is it relevant for me at all? I, as a human being or an individual, or I, as a MSME, I may not be making. It's the big players who are creating the havoc. So that would be my first stand. So keeping that in mind, and taking all our experiences that we are all in, we have just started to understand it or take cognizance of this particular topic. So I invite all of you to contribute to this session. And yes, please do stop me wherever, and maybe at every juncture where you would also want to contribute, and let's understand this particular consideration in a better way. Because I think as auditors and as consultants, maybe many consultants and also industry members who are present here, I think it is time for us as the citizens of this world to take up this particular thing in our hands. And I once again thank ICS and Sadhguru Sang for giving this opportunity for me to, become vocal. Time for all of us to become environmentalists. So I share my small presentation out here. I hope the presentation is visible to you on the slideshow mode. Yes? I think the one who can respond is Vaibhav. He being the
Yes.
host. Vaibhav, is it visible as a slideshow?
Yeah, visible.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's understand. Yes, as the picture depicts, we are in this situation, we as as a human race, we have grown beyond our capacity. We have grown ourselves. I think there is no need for us to anymore, do any kind of a adventurous thing to show how big we have grown on this planet, right? Okay. So the agenda, as Vaibhav has already highlighted, is we are just trying to deliberate on the issue as to why this was introduced at all at this juncture.
Hello. Hello. Yes, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt you, ma'am. Ma'am, can you please be louder, because I think some of the participants have problem in that hearing, ma'am.
I am okay.
So, ma'am, can you please
I'll
loud?
connect my headphones.
Yeah, ma'am.
I'm audible, please. You can hear me better? Okay, so what is the climate change amendment itself? That is taking into small considerations, means the possible understanding, because this particular amendment has been introduced only in the first of the auditable clauses, that is clause number 4. So taking that and understanding it and how we as auditors can interpret it, and we can I cannot use the word enforce, because the agencies who have taken up the decision of this signing up of this declaration have very mildly asked us all not to enforce it on the organization yet in that enforceable manner, but rather gently provoke their thinking, right? The thought process towards their understanding, and also sensitizing them towards climate change. So, and what would be the consequence? I think we don't have to really bother about these consequences at all, because we have already are in the middle of these consequences, right? And also understanding the amendments with some of the standards, because this amendment has been brought about in the type A management standards of ISO, and the number is around 31. And the major amongst that is these, what I have picked up, because this is the basis. These standards are the basis for any other standards an industry would like to add on to their management system. So why was this particular? Let's understand the history behind it. Otherwise, it will be a little difficult for us. And always there will be a question in our minds that where did this come from? And why are they? Who are these people who are making our lives, much more difficult, right? Okay. So it all started with, as I said, it started with from the day we started industrialization. But the real impact and the world taking cognizance of it happened during the Paris Agreement in 2016. So in the Paris Agreement in 2016, the treaty was signed by all the signatory countries, member countries, and they declared that climate change mitigation, adaptation, and climate change finance will be taken care of. So this was an agreement brought about by the Paris Agreement. Second one was the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which has been in force for quite long. And in 2015, right, when the member countries of the United Nations signed and adopted this to bring about or implement this in their respective countries, it is the blueprint for us, right? It is a blueprint which declares that, we'll be working towards the prosperity of people and the planet. So we are not different. People and the planet go hand in hand. And when we talk about the planet, it is a complete ecosystem, the biodiversity, which we have to contain and keep it safe for now as well as the future generation. And then we have the United Nations call for action, adaptation and resilience, because this is when the real impact of the climate change was started to be felt. So the United Nations, the Environmental Program, UNEP, gave a clarion call for adapting, action call rather, for adaptation and resilience for climate change for the countries and the communities at large. Then we have the London Declaration in 2021, which was an effort to support the governments, because we saw that all the other 3 treaties were signed by the respective countries, member countries. So country alone cannot do, a government alone cannot do. They come for a very limited time period to rule, right? And they have got many, many major things on their hands to fulfill. This call for climate change may take a backseat, as it has always been taking a backseat, right? So with that, the standards body, the British Standards International and the International Organization for Standardization, ISO, committed itself by releasing a joint communique talking about that we will be committing to incorporate the climate science into the new standards, bringing about the first of the amendments to the 2015 standards of 9001, ISO 9001, because this was reiterated that it would go unchanged till 2030, right? So this was adopted in February 2024. So what is it? I have just taken a snapshot of the changes, which you can see in the standards. That is in the clause number 4.1, where we talk about understanding the organizational context. So here it is added a point, a note is added. So it is not changing the script as such, but it is rather adding a footnote to it. It says that the organization shall determine whether climate change is a relevant issue. So this here, we can here the role of auditors starts. Also the implementers, the lead implementers for the respective organization and the management starts here, because there is an enforcing word out here, that is shall. So when we all know that when the word shall is being used, that means there is a power behind it, there is a force behind it. You cannot say that, no, I don't know about it, right? So organizations will have to now understand what is climate change and in what way it is a relevant issue for them, right? They have to start the deliberation. That means to say that the standard is asking you to just pause, stop doing your routine work, right? And pause and think about this. And then it goes on to the 4.2, where it says that relevant interested parties can have, now comes the recommendation part, can have requirements related to the climate change. So first is take note of it, pause yourself and give it a thought. And after that, just try to understand that who are these interested parties for whom it's becoming a relevant issue. Climate change is going to become literally a relevant issue. So this is the addendum, what we can see in the standard, right? So in simple words, I think it is highlighting or pinpointing towards identifying new risks. And we know that in the same breath, we have to also talk about opportunities, because risks leads to opportunities. This is a journey we have to continue until the end of the planet, right? So it is equally risks and opportunities. And new compliant obligations, of course, because once the countries have signed an international agreement, then the enforcement starts. They have to it's an action point where the action plan has to be formulated by the respective countries, and they will have to start tweaking their regulations and bringing out new laws. So in this direction, we have already seen the country moving forward. The first of it was declaring itself in different environmental summits and conclaves, the COPs, the country has been participating in, where it has openly declared that we would be getting into net zero by 2070, and we are setting our targets towards that is reduction percentages in 2050. That is by 2050, right? And our countdown actually has started because we as a nation have started our countdown, and the milestone starts from 2030 itself. That is why the ISO standards also are going to go on in the same manner till 2030, right? They have been reiterated to be followed for 2030. Then the next milestone is 2050, and then it is 2070, where we have to show that net zero concept everywhere. That means the amount of carbon dioxide we are emitting will be absorbed. That means we are nullifying the carbon dioxide effect, the GHG effect. So then, as I already mentioned, the compliance obligations. So this has been rolling out. We can already see, if you can log on to the CPCB website, then you can see the different rules and regulations or notifications. They have been increasing on an everyday basis. So you have to keep tab on these, and you have to put them on your favorites, and keep checking at it before you. All the environmental or the EHS practitioners, I think, will have to start doing it, right? They have to put it on their favorite bar. So the new requirements for internal external communication also will change, because this is not something which I alone or a management alone can take it forward. We need the whole community along with you, right? All the interested parties and all the stakeholders have to join hands and sing in chorus, right? The mantra to control climate change. And the changes in operations that may lead to changes in resources and required competencies also. That means our learning never stops. So we have to keep finding new opportunities. That means innovations. It's talking about new innovations. Let's go back to the first topic. That is a risk. So every risk has to be mitigated. And the mitigation is nothing but coming up with newer and innovative methods, right? So this is a general macro level understanding. And of course, when we are doing all this, as I said, climate is something which you have to watch on a, like in the sense now, we used to look at the weather changes only when we switch on the news on the TV channels, right? And of course, we do not have the patience also to listen to the whole of the news, because weather was always on the last bit. Half a minute was given for weather to be, highlighted in the news item. But I don't think it's anymore like that. It is on the forefront. So it has taken the place of the breaking news now. So the monitoring, that means, has to be on a every second basis. So what is this? Let's see, as an auditor, how can we interpret it as, right? This is my understanding. This is my humble presentation to all of you, or rather, I would say humble submission in front of all of you. This is how I have been able to understand it. And to understand it, of course, I have taken the great amount of help from the knowledge available at all corners, and the new perspectives and way people are talking about it. Experts have been talking about it. So the first of the questions what we could ask is, has the organization determined whether climate change is a relevant issue? So 4.1, the footnote, what it asks for, the organization shall, think. So I, as an auditor, will ask, have you done it, right? Have you deliberated on it? Do you know anything about climate change, right? So our conversation will start like this. And then, does the organization's determination? Now, okay, the answer to the first question would be, yes, I have heard about it. Yes, I know everybody is talking about it. Then in that sense, we go to the second question. So do you think that it is affecting your organization? And if yes, then how are you aligning yourself, right? That means your action plan, your strategies might have already started to take form. And then, does the organization's determination align with their contractual agreement? Because just keeping it in your head is just an idea, right? And we know that our brain is such a super fast processor that on a fraction of a second, it gives out n number of thousands and thousands of ideas. So this idea also is going to get lost in the great, the melee of the ideas. So one of the ways where your seriousness towards it can be demonstrated is when you put it in black and white, right? That means when you are committing. And the contractual agreements is the one with the stakeholders and the interested parties, which is the last of it, the end of the journey, right? The first of the journey is bringing it into your mission. That means I'm going to commit myself as an organization and I'm going to show that to the world. So it starts with my organizational policy commitment, right? So these would be some of the questions I think immediately, maybe if any one of us are having an audit on Monday, I think we can do this, take up these questions and ask our auditees. Now let's go further. How do I understand it? So I'm taking it in a different, sequential order. I'm going to start with 27,001 because we all know that this is one of the standards which is, capturing the organization's attention and also the lives of all of us. That means it is not only the organizations going digital, we have gone digital. That's why you are listening to me over the cloud, right? Okay, so that is why I have picked it up in this sequence. 27,001 is the first one. And going to the 4.1 footnote, I'm trying to understand and put it out here, the internal and the external issues, which could be captured for 27,001. So one of the basic thing is the infrastructural vulnerability, isn't it? Because here, the existing information technology infrastructure, what you have, has to withstand the extreme temperatures or the flash floods we all will be facing, right? So this is the first of it, because already we know that the IT infrastructure is energy guzzler. That is the one which takes away major part of the energy consumption in the industrial sector is being taken up by the IT infrastructure, right? The servers, they run as, when we run our minds also, we start sweating, right? Similarly, the servers also sweat. And if the servers start sweating, then it will crash. And all that great data, what we have put up there, the whole thing, even the medical fraternity has gone virtual. That an operation is performed by taking into account or directions by the surgeon who is sitting miles and miles away in another corner of the globe, right? So this is the situation today. It is not a bad situation. This is how we have innovated, right? That means medical help is available for anybody at any corner of the world. The expertise can be in any corner of the world, but it is available to everybody in any corner, right? That is the availability, what it has created, opportunity. So that particular infrastructure will be under threat. And then we have the workforce availability. So when we have an infrastructure vulnerability, then we also need the employee availability there. It has an impact on the employee availability and productivity because the people who are working also are facing the heat. It is not only the machine which is experiencing it, it is also the people working on the machines, right? Machines are there only because we are there. Then comes the operational resilience. That is the process. The processes, different processes which are between the men and the machine out here. They also will have to adapt to the climate change or climate-related disruptions. If there is a flood in your server room, The water, you would have left it in the night, in the evening, and the next morning when you come and open your server room, the IT in charge sees that it is waterlogged. So what do? You right? So that is the kind of operational resilience what we are talking about. So coming, these are the internal issues an organization can face. Then let's go to the external issues. It is the regulatory changes. As we said that one of the major thing is here that all these things are going to put up different regulations. Labor regulations will come. Then comes the energy consumption. So now the energy sector, the Ministry of Power will get into a spin. How can they give you power all the time, right? And that too, when we have a very limited, we have not transited completely to renewables. That means our complete dependency is still on the perishable, that is extinctable or resources like the thermal, right? So majorly we are still into thermal. Then regulatory changes. That means now comes the monitoring and regulation will come, that how much I can use, how much, because all of us, this is a common shared commons. This comes under shared commons. Every citizen, every business will have a right over. So then we will have to start talking about the percentages, right? Rationing of the power will come. So like this, there will be changes to rules and regulations. And then comes the supplier management, the vendor management, right? Dependency on the external vendors who may be affected by climate change also will come into our considerations when we are planning and agreeing to customer deliverables, customer delivery timelines, right? So was I audible clearly? Were you able to understand? Are you all with me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So if I am very fast, I'm sorry, the time slot is very small and the subject is very vast. So these external and internal issues, we know that gives rise to the, risks and opportunities. So what are the risks and the opportunities we have out here? The risks would be infrastructure damage. Yes. Weather can, yes, the data centers and the networks can get disrupted and corrupted, distracted also. Supply chain issues. The climate change can affect hardware and service availability, right? Naturally. And cooling costs, yes, as we have already discussed, the power cost is going to go high. And now you'll have to have a budgetary constraints comes into picture. And the data risks, losing the data, because all of a sudden are so comfortable that in the feather touch, we can save so many things and keep everything. We don't have to search for a paper, pen, and you need ergonomics to do all that. Whereas to just tap on it and keep it digitally, you don't need much effort. So with that ease also comes a big threat. So these are some of the risks. But equally, as I said, the journey goes on. This is not the end of the road. So we have to create. Man is very, very adaptable, resilient, and innovative, because we are on our great journey of challenging the universe, isn't it? So here comes the opportunities for innovation. And there will be demand for the increased need of sustainability, focused energy efficient IT systems, right? The hardwares and the softwares, now those industries can innovate here. And also, it is not only that, also about data storage and efficient computing. All the software engineers also will have new venues, and remote working also, right? Because having your servers and the people is now causing trouble. So we will have the servers, it will be remotely controlled in a safe place, and we will have the workforce also working from remote, right? They don't have to traverse the distance during the climatic change impacts. Then efficient operations also, investing in energy efficiency, because we will have to come up with all kind of energy efficient 5-star kind of products, right? And gadgets. And also, this is also now being used. We all know that the green branding, green labeling, and also the organic, what we say, all these things are gaining lot of brand value, isn't it? So in an environmental language, we like to call this as greenwashing, right? So greenwashing of brands is happening and it is gaining popularity. That means it brings about a reputational confidence in the users. And climate resilience can open new markets, right? Very, very new markets to explore for the innovative minds. So this was what I felt and means could put it up for 27,001. Now let's see how we can interpret 14,001, because climate change is all about 14,001, and you would have seen that in this great Josh, the ISO standards also has brought in number of standards about which is related to 14,000 once upon a time, if all of you agree with me, was one and the only standalone standard with no cross reference also, right? But today it has so many standards, that on an everyday basis. So when I was preparing for this slide, I came across 14,007 and 14,008, which talks about the financing part, carbon credits and carbon cost financing, new standards. So yes, it's a ever learning field for all of us here. Okay, so let's see the internal issues out here. Emission control, yes. Now challenges in controlling the emissions and managing the waste will be very much on the top of the list priority for every organization. And resource usage also should be cut down. The moment we talk about reducing waste, automatically, it means I'm also looking towards using less resources, right? And then we are talking about, that means design and development changes will have to be taken care of now, right? It is not only making as operationally efficient. In that operational efficient, we will have to add energy efficiency and we will have to add resource efficiency, right? So many things, product downsizing of design and development. Then infrastructural risks, yes, that is a physical infrastructure, what all can hit you should also be considered. Then let's talk about the external issues. Now, external issues again are all the other external stakeholders. Now we will have to talk about them. And in that, please remember, public, the community at large becomes the primary. We are answerable now. We are answerable in open to all the stakeholders, especially the public. And then we have the legal and the regulatory changes. So as per, we know that we have already deliberated it in other standard also. So likewise, the environmental regulations will come into picture. And here we have already seen that, as I mentioned, if you go to the Pollution Control Board, the website, that is CPCB website and the respective state CPCB websites, you see that new regulations, EPRs have increased, right? Initially, we had EPR. First, it started with the e-waste, then battery was added, and then the plastic packaging was included. And now we have tires. And I think many more are there. You can just go explore it, because this list is not going to end. And then coming to the market opportunities, yes, now it will be a green market out there. So 14,001 standard certification will no more be driven externally or enforced externally by the government or the customer. Rather, you will be doing it to enhance your own brand, right? So let's see the risks out here. What would be the risks? Following the internal and external issues. Yes, climate change can disrupt raw material availability. Of course, it can, because there is going to be a curb on virgin metal mining, right? And circular economy is already in place in many organizations in countries, right? The Nordic countries are the first of them, and Denmark was the first of it, which started with a circular economy, and it's already enforcing it. So the European Union, through its ESG compliance, is going to see to it that you also become ESG compliant. And operational interruptions due to extreme weather, yes, disruptions in manufacturing, that means it will hit on your delivery and quality timelines. And the product characteristics itself, the shelf life of the product is going to get vastly affected because of the temperature and the humid changes. So we are experiencing it. Places which were no more humid are becoming intensely humid. So that means now there is no question of you thinking about, when I'm supplying you to the coastal areas where humidity is high. Now I have certain design and functional characteristics I have to look into. But when the other places are also getting humid, the hilly areas are getting humid, right? Who used to be more dry. So they are getting humid. That means now the design team will have to be get to serious work. Increased energy and resource costs also will be there. These are some of the risks and the opportunities which will be overlapping, right? And liability, environmental liability is going to increase because you will be charged. From now on, you will be charged when you are emitting beyond a level carbon dioxide. GHG gas emissions will come into consideration, then you will be charged for it. So we are already paying for the waste, that is the domestic waste being segregated and disposed of. So the industries will have to now come into the virtual waste, which cannot be seen with our naked eyes, that is the GHGs. So opportunities it will equally create here is, yes, I think the medical fraternity will be in, it is already in full, work because of the COVID, because we know that COVID also is an aftermath of climate change, right? And many more pandemics and epidemics are in the pipeline because as the carbon dioxide is being exposed, that is when we are exposing our earth, digging the soil, there are a lot of microbes which the soil is holding on. That is, the roots of the trees are holding on to these microbes. When you dig it, you are letting them loose into the atmosphere and into that atmosphere which we all breathe, right? That is how it is. The microbes are going to have a major say in our lives. And then the pharmaceutical industry, yes, will get into innovation. Then the market preferences also will change. They will get into more sustainable products. So the labeling, the green labeling will be on the forefront. And likewise, the energy efficient and innovations will take the major portion. So we move on to the base and the pillar standard, that is 9001. And here we know that we only concentrate on the customer. Very sad. That is why they have brought in the change and the amendment to the 9001, so that all the other standards will follow suit. So 9001 here, the process adaptability is one of the internal issues. Now we are doing certain things in certain ways. Now how I am going to change my way? Because we all have become complacent, right? So that complacency is going to be a very hard thing for us to replace. And then comes the resource availability, because now the things are going to change. The kind of, you will not find, your labor will become a big issue now, right? And equipment efficiency also has to be monitored. That means from preventive, we will have to get on with a predictive maintenance and try to be very cautious and monitoring the equipments for all these climate changes. External issues would be, yes, market is a key factor when we talk about 9001. So there is a market demand shifts will be there, and the customer will start preferring. Preferences will be there now towards sustainability, right? So you will have to do likewise. I know that, and I have also worked, and I think all of us might have also come across where the customer demands are becoming higher when it comes to sustainability. Now there are many customers who come from the developed countries where I am already mentioned. Climate change has already been implemented as per the law. They have brought in laws there. So now here what has happened is that they are enforcing it down the supply chain, and they are asking the suppliers to change over change their mode of power consumption, that is to renewables. And in many cases, the MSMEs have been asked to shift 100%, and they have been given very short, timelines. Within 2024, that is the end of 2024, that is December 2024, they have to shift to 100% renewables. So that is why even the governments are gearing up. So in our state of Karnataka also, there is a huge solar park which has been created not very far from Bangalore. And many of the organizations are now switching over. They are buying power from there, right? So this kind of issues are happening, and changes are also happening. So as of now, the government is a facilitator. Very soon, it's going to become an enforcer. So these are some of the changes, and the risks. So what we can see is, yes, there is going to be a marked change in your money matters, right? Everything is going to cost money, because the first of the things what I just now mentioned is shifting on to renewables is highly expensive. So many of them, that is why the government has made this option, of allowing you to buy it from them, rather than, installing a solar, which is at one go, it becomes very expensive for any MSME to put it up. And also we know that when we go to audit this particular thing, we take that up as an environmental program. So we give around 3 to 5 years for the organization to completely install and start commissioning and reaping the benefits of the renewable energy, right? So in that sense, it becomes difficult for the MSMEs. So that is how such things are increasing now. And we will have to also we will have to bring in a kind of a 360-degree kind of a perspective towards tackling climate change, right? So now just let's go on to a very brief, clause-wise, I have just put this, how I can interpret it. So this is the 9,000 clauses, how we will interpret it. So when we talk about the fourth clause, that is the context of the organization, this is how I understand it. That is for first one, 4.1 and the 2. Here we will have to bring in the policy change, the commitment, right? The management will have to now understand this and bring about the understand the internal and the external issues, what we have already discussed. And based on that, they will have to change their strategic goal, right? Commitments will change their marketing strategies also will have to align as per this climate change. And then in this, we also have the regulatory authorities. So we already know that the customers will start demanding it, and in many cases they have already started their due diligence of demanding. And now the community also in turn expects a lot from you, right? Community also expects, because now due to climate change, let us say that I already have the temperature is rising. And if there is a residential community, we know that throughout India, we don't have anything called, in many of the MSMEs, we will see that the residential area and the industrial area, we don't know where one starts and the other ends, right? So they all are imbibed, they are in a network. So here what happens is, if you have an industry which is emitting so much of heat and you have a resident, it is going to have an impact, right? In summer, already the environmental temperature is high, and your neighbor also is emitting like that, then it will have impact. So community expectations will increase now. And then we have the consideration where you will have to change your scope, right? The scope of work itself will change. That means, yes, I may change my physical boundaries. So industries will have to now start thinking and start populating those spaces which has been created by the government, industrial estates, right? People who are here, well, within the city, within the urban, the communities, residential communities will have to start looking towards shifting. That is the scope change. Then let's go to the next of the changes, because I think 4 will automatically bring a change to 5, right? It will bring a change to the leadership, because 4 cannot be realized without the leadership making it, putting it in black and white. So the 6th of the clauses, here I have also mentioned about who would be the probable owner, because as auditors, we need to know whom should we go and check out with. So climate change action would be incorporating climate risk, right? In all your risks. We know that whenever you are having a risk register, it is departmental, right? We have 2 risk registers. One is organizational macro level, another one is a micro level, where every department is having a risk register, which is contributed by every member of the team, right? So here you will have to have assessments. Risk assessment should be there, and this has to be included in every. And when we say risk assessment, naturally the controls also fall in place, the mitigation. And then we have something called a 6.3, we know the objectives, right? They will have to set certain targets for us here. This again is a cascading, it comes from the scope changes, the policy changes, naturally the objective changes. Then we have the risks which comes out of this, right? Because 6.1 is all about risk and the actions to address risks and opportunities. So here we will have some questions which we can ask as, are these relevant changes in operational processes? Because that is where the things happen, right? The scope of work is the operations. And changes, how often you need to monitor them, right? And have you captured all these risks? Naturally, the opportunities also will be there, where you will have to bring in new innovations will be there, new products will be there, new market will be opened up to you. That means you are exploring as an organization. And how are you communicating this? See, if you are taking steps towards climate change, I think you should use it as a branding for your branding. So be vocal about it and very, very freely talk about it, right? And then comes the financing part, where you have the financing, the opportunities for change should be there, right? Infrastructural changes. So that again opens up employment and investments, and that's a requirement for the economy to run. Then we have the 7th clause, where we have the support functions. So all of them come here. We are talking about machinery which are energy efficient, and we are talking about lean manufacturing, right? So now lean will have a great say in all our ways of doing work. And because lean is all about reducing or making waste zero. That is way towards net zero. And then we will also be talking about eco-friendly lubricants and cleaners, right? And planning for replacing the IT equipment will change now. You cannot simply go around replacing the machines. You will have different timelines. That means the products will come with repairable options as well as longevity options, right? And whenever you are enhancing your systems, then you don't have to replace a system to enhance it. Rather, you can build over it. That kind of a equipment building, manufacturing will all be looking into when it comes to the OEMs. And of course, HR, we already know, whenever we talk about 14,001, when we audit and we ask them about one of their environmental programs, the first one is reduction of paper. So yeah, HR is the one, because we know that most of the employee documentation happens hard. And here already from July 1st onwards, our legal system has taken a big leap, and it has already declared that evidences in digital media is acceptable, right? it is acceptable in the court of law. That means, yes, HR can take also the great leap of going paperless. We have the 8.2, yes, the marketing team out here, because you are the one who will be utilizing this greenwashing to the benefit of the organization and making it, yes, converting it into currency value. So you will have to now highlight the product and the services you're giving, how green it is, and all your packaging and everything will have now a green label out there, right? And you will be doing this with a conscious mind, changing, because you are the one who will not only be changing the organizational behavior, but also changing the consumer behavior, right? So here is a great challenge for you. And then we have 8.3, as we have already very, very deeply discussed, design and development. Yes, extensive recycling you will have to bring in. That means we are talking about a hardware part. So you will have to show in your design that all that material, what is getting into building that particular product, can be extensively recycled. All right. Now you will have to start putting that footnote in your design and development document. All right. And maybe you can use color code and start showing green parts. I remember that whenever we are auditing any of the designs for 45001, we talk about safety. So they would have highlighted it in red. Similarly, we are looking for green now in your drawings. Okay. And product downsizing, of course, that means I'm going to use less and less of raw material. We have seen this in the chips, in the semiconductor industry, how the chip size is becoming smaller, smaller, and smaller, right? Okay. So then we also have the eco-design principles. That means eco-design principles means your design is having least impact on the environment, right? This will be what you will have to show in your design and development activity processes. Now comes 8.4, procurement, your supply chain. Here, you will have to very strongly bring in certain things which you can enforce down your line. Because as we have already seen, this is not a single person's problem. This is a problem of the planet. So we need to take all the people who are below us, right? All the downstream vendors will have to carry along with us. And the customer will carry all the upstream vendors. So this is how we will have to take care of each one of us and pull along everybody. Only then we will be able to achieve what we can achieve and what we can hand over respectably to the next generation. So when it comes to 8.4, here operations and quality, the last one what we saw was for the procurement. Here we will have to talk about the energy efficient procedures, right? To lower the, sorry, this is not 8.4, it is 8.5, 8.5. And this is for the operations and the quality team. They will have to also look into this when they are doing it. That means predictive maintenance. Total productive maintenance should be enforced in all shop floors. Coming to the continuous improvement, yes, we will see how you are moving towards sustainability. What are your future goals and targets to achieve in your own operations as well as in your own product, right? So that we can bring in sustainability as a culture throughout the organization. So these are some of the references I could like to highlight, which so yes, I come to the end of it, and I think we have to discuss now. I stopped the sharing. Thank you so much. Without interruption, you all were hearing. But I have a small question. In the virtual medium, we always have one question. Were you there with me? I think you all can unmute.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We are there.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So now I'll get to know how much I was understandable to all of you. I mute myself. Time for all of you to talk.
Ma'am, I just wanted to know how it is applicable to HR. You explained something, but it was not very clear. I think you're on mute, ma'am.
Yes. Yeah. So when we are talking about what you say, the HR, we are talking about so many things here. First, HR is the people's part, right? But when we are talking about 7.1, generally we are talking about resources. Resources. So that is man, material, and machines. So if we are bringing about any energy efficient kind of a machinery or tools, automatically now the people also will change. That means the competencies of people will change. The requirement, skill requirement will change, right? So you will have to bring in those kind of people out here to handle climate changes. That is where the HR will come into being. And I also mentioned about how the way you are functioning, you will be contributing to climate change. As I mentioned, a simple example of going paperless, right? So you are generating a lot of paper. That is one of the examples I have given. Whatever I have given here is open examples. You can build over it, understand it. As I said, that climate change is a very vast subject. And we have just started. We have just now looking at it. We have not even thought about thinking about it. So this is how, and when you're doing any of the changes to the infrastructure, automatically it is not the infrastructure which is getting changed, rather it is a person or the people who are changing the infrastructure. That means they should know. So we are talking ultimately about the competencies of the people handling the climate change, new scenarios. That means you will have to hire people. Now it starts with design and development, right? So people getting acquainted with the environment. There are a lot of organizations, institutions, educational institutions, which run what you say, short-term courses on environment. So all of them, I think it should start with understanding, giving an awareness on ISO 14000 itself. Isn't it, sir? Sundar, sir, what do you say?
Yeah. I do agree with you. And first of all, compliments and bringing such a burning issue, because today, everywhere throughout the world, our nation, everywhere we are very much affected with the environment change. And it's a good thing that ISO also has integrated and brought these new requirements, which are now, I think it will take time to implement. You have explained in a very nice way. And the question was one thing administration has to play a very vital role, because they had to select the right people with the mindset that they should focus our natural resources and also how to control the waste. Now, especially we have to also take care of the new generation who believes in just buying. They keep on buying the electrons, buying a lot of things, like a new trend which is going on, buying the e-vehicle and going for solar in big way. Now, I always look into long-term effect, climate change effect on this, because these equipments like solar panel will reduce the life because of heat and climate and humidity, other thing. Now, how is going to tackle? Plus, is a big question is e-vehicle. We say our motor, what we use is and the battery what we use battery has life of maybe 3 to 5 years. Now, after 5 years, a big question mark, how is going to be disposed? So people, we say eco-friendly, but again, we are not prepared how we are going to
Absolutely,
dispose.
sir. Yeah, because even the solar also, I think the first bunch of the solar waste is waiting now to be disposed, and nobody knows how to, because the technology to recycle it is very, very expensive. And I don't think the world has, the countries like India, of course, don't have that kind of a resource to do it. And that process of recycling itself is very hazardous. So now I don't know when we talk about, yes, as you mentioned, the EV also, again, an evolving technology where we don't know completely. We are just looking at the emission part. So what they are saying is that the emission from a fossil fuel vehicle and a EV vehicle, now both are less. It is less, right? 30% emission. That is what they are saying in numbers. Now, the question is that every 3 years, you are supposed to replace the battery. Now, battery, where will you throw? That is a big, big question. A big monster is there waiting. So these are, I think, as you said, sir, it is, short-term solutions. And short-term solutions are very dangerous. And we
Right.
need to be very careful. I think I was speaking to some energy, what you say, experts. So they were saying that thermal energy is the best energy if you can produce it in a very, very responsible way, right? And use it also in a responsible way.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, we have become consumer. In and out, we have become consumers. And I think somewhere we need to bring down that capitalistic outlook. Somewhere we have to control our capitalistic outlook and stop being consumers perpetually.
I have two questions with you.
Yes.
One is regarding the administration control,
Yes.
especially the use of paper, toilet papers and paper napkins and all these things. Today, the uses I have seen people do waste because it comes free. So instead of using one paper, they will take out 3, 4 papers. Now they don't know the effect, long-term effect on the climate change. Please focus on this. Second thing on the nuclear power also is safe today. There's no doubt in it. But again, the disposal after its lifetime of 25, 30 years, how it is going to be tackled is a big question mark. So please little put focus on these two issues.
Yes.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you, sir. Yeah, usage of paper. I think somewhere, sir, when I see this, I feel that policing will have to start. Organizations will have to start monitoring the usage of paper in a very strict manner, right? And I think many of the organizations are doing it, and they are showing, means when we revisit them every year, we see marked, reduction in their consumption. But yes, of course, what happens here is when we talk about paper, yes, recyclable paper is a first step. And the second step is a reduction of the usage itself. And the third step is that going digital is not the solution. It is more harmful. Digital media, it gives away more carbon footprints than your paper, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be very, very careful in how you do it. So that is why, in lean manufacturing, we talk about value added and non-value added uh, data or anything. So VA and NVA is what we use. So we have to think about every activity. What is the value addition and how much is the non-value addition? So I think then you have to decide. So this kind of a risk analysis, this has to be brought about in the risk analysis. Like if I take out this control for adopting a particular risk, how much is value added, right? I'm controlling the risk, but that control, how much is it value adding, right? So that kind of, I think that is why, sir, what is happening is what I have observed is, yes, of course, the developed countries are ahead of us and they are stressing more on risk assessment. So for every drop of the hat, they are asking for risk assessment. You take up any new thing, It may improve the business, it may bring in lot of revenues, but have you done the risk assessment? So this is kind of a, I think, attitude we will have to adopt. That is one thing. And of course, the nuclear, that is a very big issue, I think. And you are an expert, only you can guide us. But yes, we know that, if it is not done in a responsible way, then we know the repercussions of that. I think that is one of the fear which doesn't allow us to exploit or use the complete benefit of nuclear energy, isn't it?
Thank you. I think we have Mr. Anand Pal Singh,
Yes.
our very senior vice president. So I think he is also looking forward for some questions or some inputs. Yes, Anandji, very good. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. And really, in the way which you have explained the standard with the climate change, it is for me also. I was very happy to see that we can contribute to the industry in this way also, which is untouched. And you have rightly said this today. We have just opened the session for this because it is having a vast subject and a lot of issues are there in this. And government, individuals, operators, and even the business owners are also involved in this because day-to-day activity when we are going on, like usage of energy efficient equipment, energy efficient products, and people are not bothered because they say changing it is a very difficult position. So it was a good thing. Right now, I don't have any of the much question, but I think Lakshman wanting to have one question. Lakshman, you can please unmute and ask your question. Are you there, Lakshman? No, anyone else?
Can I share some views on it?
Please, sir, please.
First of all, I would like to thank you and the ICS team for bringing such a value-added topic at this challenging time. So at the beginning of this year, we all got surprised to see such a introduction of clause in the ISO 9001 itself. You do not have surprise in 14001. However, in 9001, it's a surprise. But going through in depth of the subject, I'm just speaking from Azerbaijan, Baku city. So we in our organization we've done certain things to begin with. Like using of two-side paper, if at all printing is necessary. We have started doing our digitalization, but again, you have given me another surprise that digitalization is giving more carbon. So then it's again a thought subject. Another thing we have giving away that paper cups in our catering cafeteria. Instead of that, we just introduced the crockery set. And another thing, we had a very awareness session with our employees to stop using their personal vehicles to come down to organization, and we introduced a bus. So we altogether eliminate around 36 personal vehicles in the organization. And what we also introduced recently, that all the computers and laptops, automatically it goes off when you are not using for 2 minutes, more than 2 minutes. So these are the, to begin with, these are the certain steps we introduced in our organization. So, and in today's session, you have given some insights where, we can still look into it. And the challenging part is the supply chain, because certain customers, certain vendors though they are very micro vendors, they are not willing to do certain changes in terms of climate. So that's a challenge still in front of us. So this is what I want to share. So yes, let's see what's the
Thank
way
you.
ahead. And this year in Baku
Maran.
City is organizing COP29. So we will be looking into it what its COP29 is speaking about on climate change.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's very nice.
Am I
And
audible?
bringing down the consumption, that is the usage of the public transport, that it's I mean, so the personal transport is also a very commendable thing, because that is, we're all used to being, that gives us a great freedom to come in our own vehicle, and, that you have been able to change that mindset. That's great. That's great. 1 minute, sir. There is a question here from Abhirat Sharma, right? He talks about the product life cycle. Yes, that is where it comes into. We'll have to incorporate it in our LCA, right? But that will be it, because I have seen that in 14,001, whenever we have been auditing till today, LCA was not known to the customer at all. They don't know about it at all. They would have never done it. They have to do it. Every time they take up a new product into their production line, then they have to do a LCA for it, right? They should have done a life cycle perspective analysis, that is EIA, what we say, at the beginning of starting the whole business itself, right? So this is a very this thing. Yes, this is what we will have to check when we are talking about the processes, operations part of it for 14,001. Thank you, Abhirat.
Yeah, madam.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, sir.
These I'm Sudesh Sharma. By the way, I'm using my
Okay.
son's device today. So
Sir,
very,
no problem,
I mean,
sir.
there is a
I
lot
thank
of
him.
yeah,
I
no,
thank
it's okay.
him.
There is a lot of argument. Yeah, he's also an IITian, by the way, and he's working for
Wonderful.
climate this thing
Oh,
in UK
great.
at the moment. So now my
Ma'am.
only worry is
Uh-huh.
people size, they just short circuit these requirements of product life cycle. Even generally, you go to an MSME. Recently, I'll give you an example. The guy says, I am only filling water bottles. My job, I am a water filler. Bottle ka kya hota hai? I don't care. I don't
Yes.
manufacture bottles.
Yes, yes.
How am I responsible for the life cycle of the product? वो पीने वाला, होटल
Yes.
वाला, जो भी उसको buy करता है, or it is the manufacturer of the bottle who should be responsible.
Yes.
You understand? But then
Yes.
it's a very tricky aspect. Very tricky. Who is responsible? I mean, I'll tell you a very, very practical problem. I mean, this guy wants to go for 14,001, and that's where things are stuck. You fill water, you generate, you buy bottles, right? Now, if you do a kind of life cycle assessment of this product, ultimately it's going to the, it's a very, very, serious environmental aspect and impact.
So this is where this is how we understand extended producer responsibility. The extended producer responsibility extends to the end of the product life cycle. That means he has to, down the supply chain in the downstream vendors, he has to educate them, make them aware about that product, what he's supplying. They might use it anyhow, right? Being a bottle, one can use it for filling water, another can use it for filling chemicals or oil, whatever it is. But each of his buyers should be apprised about the end of life cycle of that product, what he is selling to them. So this also has been one of the driving things what the European Union has been asking the suppliers, that you have to show it in document. So in their instruction manual or on the labeling, they have to mention it. So this is the first step what they're doing. As you mentioned, now it has to be, it has to percolate down the line. Only then we will be able to do anything about it. Responsible consumerism, I think individually we all will have to do that, sir. I agree with you.
Buyback, take back arrangement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Buyback, take back is okay, sir.
no
Here,
problem.
what happens? The
Yes.
intermediaries don't show any sense of responsibility.
Yes.
They
Yes.
just, shrug off their responsibility.
Yes.
most of them are up 14,001 certified. But the moment you talk about life cycle, वो तो मेरा क्या है, मैं खरीदता हूँ, I am pushing it forward. That's all. How
Correct.
am I responsible?
I
So
think
as you
that
said, EPR wala, this can be
Yes.
counted as an EPR thing
Yes,
rather
yes,
than okay.
yes. Sir,
Okay.
this has already been captured in plastic packaging. In plastic packaging, they have already considered this. That is why they are trapping everybody there. Nobody can say that I don't make it, I am not responsible. Because you are a buyer and a user for your own product, now you become responsible. That's how I think the law and the regulations will start, cornering them. I think only then we will be able to solve this problem, sir, because we have come to that breaking point where we need police everywhere. Moral policing.
Another point, madam, here, one innovative strategy for businesses to combat climate change is adopting an environmental profit and loss account.
Yes.
This
Yes.
can be done by monetizing environmental impact. Businesses can see the financial impact of their carbon footprint.
Absolutely, sir.
So
It is
this
going
is
to be,
one
sir.
of the innovative ways.
Sir, it is ESG, you're supposed to do all that, right? As
Yeah.
part of ESG, you're supposed to do all that. But in our country, it is the first 1,000 on the SEBI list. But it has been enforced for the MSMEs by the European countries because there it has become a law. So they are enforcing it down
Yeah.
their supply chain. I think this is how all of us will fall in line.
Madam, enforcement ka something very interesting. Today, if you see
Sir.
in an annual report of a company, which many of these big companies publish in the newspaper, half a page, many of them, 1/4 page. They don't start with financials. They start with sustainability report always,
Yes. Yes.
But the tragedy here is you install, 10 solar panels in your townships and all, and then you show that as sustainability and everyone accepts it, The tragedy is this. The tragedy
Yes.
is not that we don't have clauses and laws and things like that. The tragedy is like we just discussed, and we have had experts, who have done in our Paryavartan program, who
Yes.
said that solar is not a holy cow, the way
No.
it is, made out to be.
Yes.
And what is happening is capitalists are benefiting from these, duty drawbacks and all those kind of subsidies and tax havens in Gujarat and here and there.
Yes.
The ultimate beneficiary is a handful of few people, but not society itself, not the
Yes.
earth.
True, sir. Very true. Very true, sir.
So many a time you feel there is a farce going on in the name of, sustainability and environment. When I say, I have shifted to solar. Now, solar, like Dr. Kataria himself pointed out,
Yes.
it's not that.
No, sir. No,
The
it is
future-
not.
The
It
future
is
would
not.
be hydrogen in many ways.
So
not
rather,
fuel.
sir, I think we will have to get back to that design and development part, that LCA part, and we will have to ask them that how energy efficient is it? Stop about going solar. Rather, how energy means whatever it is you are consuming, it should become an energy efficient process and a product, right?
Very true. Very, yeah.
Yes.
Ma'am, Lakshmanan here.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, regarding the assessment, that is the audit, external audit and certification, is there any timeline by which all these companies have to move towards the whatever the difference is amended clauses that you are talking about?
I think Sumit sir will be able to tell you that, but as far as I understand, we are not supposed to enforce it, right, sir? We have to gently talk to the customers. That is what it has been told.
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely.
Yes.
Ma'am, in fact, I'd like to welcome Anil Johri ji is also on board, and Anil Johri ji is here, and I would, request him to throw his insight on what is his take, because LCA is so challenging because it involves all stakeholders. It's about everybody moving that one leg up, including from the person who's implementing, the consultant, the certification body who is, checking it, because a lot of onus is on the CBs. A lot of onus lies on the ABs for driving those practices, and the consumer most of all, because he's the driving force. And if he can put a lot of pressure and start using it in the right way, demand or appreciate products which have a callback. Like if you buy a battery, if you get a say 20% kickback on a buyback of a battery, then we automatically talk about LCAs in a more rigorous. So, Anil sir, if you're there, if you would know of certain practices which are done better to promote, how can it be done in a more practical way?
Sir, before that, can ICS, somebody can answer my question regarding the timeline and the clauses that will become mandatory for the companies, whatever the ma'am has explained about the new clauses regarding the climate change.
I think they are immediately applicable.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah,
We
correct,
have to what you say include it in our audits. But yes, as I mentioned, it has to be on a understanding note. Like, have you heard about it? Are you deliberating on it? In that means we are trying to understand, is the auditee inclined towards climate change? That is the first step, sir. But yes, we will have to ask this, and I think we will go into the area for improvement. We will have to suggest them area for improvement and prod them to think over these lines. And the moment it is put up as an area for improvement, naturally the timelines are set, right? In the next audit, they will have to show you some kind of a improvement on that particular matter.
Is the standard amendment been officially released anywhere, or how is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, it is
So
released.
that does mean that it is come into it become mandatory, right?
Yes, yes. Shall is already used in that.
No,
I
but
showed you, right?
no, ma'am, I'm
I
asking
think,
because
can I say something?
Please.
yeah.
I think we need to understand two things. Number one, when a standard is published or amended, it's valid on the day it's published or amended.
Okay.
The previous version goes away legally. Now, industry needs time to transit to a new standard. So people who certify, which is not ISO, mind you, people who certify, they usually give a transition timeline and set a timeline, 2 years, 3 years. So that entity is IAF, International Accreditation Forum. It has a default transition period of 2 years unless decided otherwise. So in some cases it has been 18 months, in some cases it has been 3 years, but default timeline is 2 years. So please remember that when a standard comes in, it's applicable immediately. The previous standard is gone. If a revised standard comes in, the previous standard is obsolete. Period. Technically, it doesn't exist. But to enable industry to transit, the people who are responsible for certification, they allow a transition timeline. Now, in this case, to my understanding, IAF has not given any transition timeline, which means it is applicable with immediate effect. Next audit, when you face, these questions will be asked.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was very, very clear. If possible, I just want to throw one more question. If as a third person, I'm seeing, in fact, I'm looking at this clause only today only, after the madam's presentation, and whatever ma'am has given the impact of the different clauses, I'm not, as a third person, unable to see the thin line between this climate change and the already existing environmental impact part. So that what I'm saying is what has been already prescribed by 14,001 is probably 90% of what we are talking about, and this 10% of this climate change is what we are talking about. So I think as a company, a person, or as a person who is going to implement this, I need to focus more on this 10% because 90% I already have done it for so many years.
So you have, for you, it is because you have also implemented 14,001.
Right.
But there is a large number of people who don't have 14,001. They are only certified for 9,001. So here it is immaterial whatever you are certified for. All the type A standards where the amendment has taken place, all of them will have to fall in line, right? So, and when we are talking about 14,001 and how you have been taking care of the environment, sir, this is climate change. There means, in the sense, now the rigor in which you are going to look into it will change. It is not that I have reduced the consumption of paper, I have reduced the consumption of water. No, here we are talking about a LCA. That is a complete lifestyle changing will have to happen. I'm sorry, I'm being a little forceful because I am an environmentalist by heart.
Ma'am, if I'm not wrong, life cycle assessment was already there in 14,001, if I'm not wrong, ma'am.
But it was not done, sir, by everybody. Seriously. Never done. I have seen it. That is a tragedy.
Okay, noted.
Actually, sorry, I want to add here. So far, we have not seen the standard in the concept of climate change. Today, I really appreciate you, ma'am, specifically when you are talking and giving the insight of the standard of the climate change. When we see the aspect impact assessment or EIA or something, we rarely see that climate change risk and other requirements which are there, which has to be done. And you have rightly said that the organizations who are going under 9001 certification, they are also start seeing that what is climate change in their processes and equipment and other machineries which are being used.
So what I have seen is that when we ordered for 9001, the customer is aligned only towards the quality management, and waste management is nowhere there. There is no housekeeping. And if you ask anything, the first question he will say is, just look at my customer satisfaction report and my zero defect report, right? So this is the attitude somebody who has implemented 9000 has.
It is because of not understanding the standard in proper way.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Because if you by full, what you say, understanding 9001, if you implement it, I always felt that you don't need all other standards at all. They all are
Correct.
like accessories. 9001 is very comprehensive. And yeah, in full spirit, it is never implemented. It is only implemented, only looking at the customer and his requirement. So I think that is why this particular amendment has been brought about. As Lakshman sir mentioned, in 14001, yes, we have been doing it. We are taking care of the environment. We are taking care of all the waste and things like that. We are minimizing it, also putting up the targets. But others also have to fall in line.
Plus, ma'am, a different perspective is, we've been always looking from the environmental perspective that we are making a difference to. We are not looking at it from vice versa, what climate change is going to do to the organization. So that is more vital, because what climate change is going to do upon us, we have reduced water, like water shortage is something that we are seeing very common today. So how does it impact the business? We go means from how do you adapt to the climate changes for your organization? Our entire concentration, I believe, has always been from the organizational perspective towards the environment, what, some parts of, carbon footprint, what we are looking at, some parts of ESG, but climate change, humko kya difference karega, that is almost negligibly seen in risk resistance.
Absolutely, sir. That business continuity aspect, the climate change is going to bring your business to a halt.
Absolutely.
Right? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And water-intensive industries, climate change, where you temperatures are mandatory, cold storage with increasing temperature, your efficiency is going to go down. It's going to hit you in a big way. So all those concepts will definitely, you'll have to look at from the outside in.
Yes, sir. So only yesterday I was in one organization which is into adhesives. So they make adhesives for automobile industry. And when we were talking about climate change amendment, they said that yes, we are already suffering this summer.
Yeah.
Our the shelf life of the adhesive has come down because of the overheat.
Correct.
So these were the things which comes out when you talk to them. Otherwise, they will not even think about it.
Correct.
They will, the routine work will keep happening.
Madam, one more thing. With
Yes.
due respect to ISO 9001, see this clause 4.1 and 4.2, this recent amendment which came in February 2024, in a very simple one-line statement, it is written in 4.1 and 4.2 for interested parties and in the context of the organization. As an auditor, how much an auditor will give an importance to an ISO 9001 certified organization? Because the other clauses they are meeting very well, and to this climate change, in order to just meet that particular clause, they can show a small evidences and other things. Will that make the suffice in a true manner?
So that is why that the complete other clauses also I mentioned. From fourth clause, you have to, bring it out and see till the 9th and the 10th clause. Till the
That is
continual
where the
improvement.
ISO,
Yes. Yes,
you
I
are
think
correct,
that
madam.
is how the auditors will have to interpret it, sir.
because ISO has to clearly not spelled out. They are only just given a simple one-line statement on these two clauses.
Yes.
But they have to relate that to the other clauses, which is not happened.
Sir, everywhere,
So-
if you see the standards, everywhere the clause 4.1 would be cross-referenced. You go to the other clauses, you will see. So wherever they have cross-referenced 4.1, automatically now you will have to include climate change also. That way, sir. That is why they have not done any great change. Only 2 lines they have added.
Climate change तो दिख रहा है ना. The worst affected thing is business continuity process,
Yes.
BCP.
Yes.
Yesterday,
yes.
I was told that 3 companies in somewhere around Dehradun, pharma companies, their employees didn't report to work because of this cloudburst.
Yes. Yes.
No, the worst thing that is getting affected is continuity of your business, basically. I mean, and which is a 9001 matter, or as much as
Yes.
it is a environmental matter.
Yes. Very rightly said, sir. Very rightly said.
But
I
the
have some. Yeah.
sorry, Sharma ji, please.
Carry on.
But the beauty of these standards is such, no, they're written so that there is horizontal application across services, manufacturers, so it's never spelled out. When we you look at it, we look at it from our perspective or our industry perspective, very specific. So, it's a little hazy. But then I think the intent is that whenever we're reading it, you look at it from the applicability to a particular industry where it is being implemented. So that's how the versatility of the auditors comes into play, to be able to, understand processes. And that's how it's a very intricate system, sir, which needs a lot of technical experts to go along, because your assessors may or may not know the ins and out of the industry. That's where relevance comes in, to be able to apply the clause within the organization being assessed in light of its processes and products. So that's where the relevance will come. And needless to say, sir, it's a maturity cycle. So even the auditors evolve, the companies evolve, and the whole evolution cycle, that PDCA, that's one thing which has stayed right through, the oldest version that I know of. And it's so true even when you look at it to any applicability.
Perfect.
क्या है, Sumit ji ne started something very, very, sensitive in this country. I'm just wondering, I mean, given the number of even the best managed private and public sector companies, I've rarely found a person, intimately familiar with this PDCA part of the standard, basically. If you look at a process of a typical PSU, a typical process, they don't even have a look at it till 2 recertifications. अब आप सोचिए, मतलब, I mean, the process also should be subject to PDCA, the SOP or the process. So 2 recertifications have passed, and there are several examples in the best Navratna PSUs where these processes have not been touched. They said, क्या जरूरत है, ये 2014 में बनी थी ना, चल रही है आज भी, no problem. The focus still is on document numbers and signing of documents by the authorized signatory.
But PSUs का एक थोड़ा सा और भी issue है, collateral transfers and the philosophy of cross-departmental transfers. So they have different challenges. Plus, the approvals when it comes to documentation change go to the highest level within the organization, which will require committees to be put in place and then reasons to be put. So I think PSUs, no doubt that they've existed for so long, and they're within the Fortune 500 and the Navratnas. I'm sure they have a lot of merit in what they carry on and put together. But yes, it's a little slower, definitely, as compared to a private sector where, across the table, two people sit and, would want to implement change because it's top bottom driven. But I think they're up to it. मेरा मानना है, they've got very robust systems in place. It's just that, changes are a little slower in certain sectors, and some are super efficient even today. But then yes, it is challenging because of the way they have the transfers make a lot of difference, because some have an ideology like जो O&M देखता है वो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में आ जाता है, जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग देखता है वो और किसी में चला जाता है, and then they toss and turn, and that makes it, I think, very challenging for them.
True, that's one. I think that's a very solid reason, of course. But by and large, just to be very honest and candid, I mean, the focus still is on, having a document in place, having a proper document number, having it signed by a signatory, and auditor आएगा document देखेगा. That's the focus.
सर आज भी उनके टेंडर्स कंसल्टेंसी एंड सर्टिफिकेशन टुगेदर निकालते हैं, and we keep bringing this fact together that these are two activities which are conflict of interest, and they say, oh, we cannot do it because this is our standard format, and then we go up and have the accreditation body write to them, and then then some change, some don't change, and then आज भी होता है सर. So although आज मतलब the percentage in which we see such tenders are negligible, maybe about a 4 or 5% tenders that we do ऐसा scene होता है, but otherwise I think we moved up the ladder. So as I said, sir, changes are slow, and they have a track record of performing and staying where they are, so I'm sure they're good, and they're really good.
True. Balance sheet अच्छा है.
मतलब सब अच्छा है सर. जैसे आप नवरत्ना कंपनीज ले लीजिए, they're doing a superb job, sir. They're the finest in the country.
കഴിയാറായി. ഇപ്പൊ 10 പതിനഞ്ചുണ്ട്.
वो तो there no doubt about that. No doubt, absolutely. The only thing is that the MR goes for a residential lead assessor course and comes back and starts controlling documents, not in implementing ISO to its core.
सर maturity cycle है ना सर, वो भी तो आदमी mature होगा. हम भी when we started off as assessors, we were doing the छोटा types, looking at documentation, and then people mature, sir. That's why it's very important to focus on what kind of assessors you are, because from a CB perspective, I'll talk from a CB perspective, you have the right to choose who's coming to you for audit. A plan is sent, CVs are sent. You have the right to understand whether he understands your industry, whether there is potential conflict of interest, and you can work that way. So a lot of things are within the system, but then a person who's well connected with his system, really they object, they say, okay, ye mat bhejo, ye 2 baar aa chuka hai, isko mat bhejo. So a lot of clients are aware. I remember one of our tenders with one of the Navratna PSUs, they have actually specified the competence criteria of assessors being sent to them, and which is a very good thing, and it shows the maturity level of that organization with what they are ready to accept, and they actually see whether they are from that relevant industry, like oil and gas hai to oil and gas ka unko knowledge hai ya nahi, or assessors. And some to have now started specifying the NACE codes typically. So we need coded auditors with a particular NACE code. So things are very, very, and that's good change. That's welcome change, according to me.
It's one way of making sure the auditors are not complacent.
Correct. Now it goes always, see, the consultants have to be one up, the auditors have to go one up, we all have to scale up, and
Yes.
that's the way the system will mature, and we'll all do good for the country. See, ultimately, I don't know how many people believe this, but whatever we are doing today, it raises the bar for India. I always look at it from this perspective that any stone which is being thrown in this direction, in the direction which we do, needless to say, we all are benefited, and monetarily we all take care of ourselves with what we do, but what we do makes a difference to India, is what I believe, and I do it with a lot of pride, because it's for the good of the country.
Absolutely.
कर रहे हैं और कोई भी नहीं कर रहा है. There is a multitude of CBs and professional bodies. ये सब interactions are just I have not heard of too many of them.
करते हैं सर, सब अपने अपने स्टाइल से अपने लेवल पे करते हैं, तो कुछ मतलब तरीके अलग होते हैं, बट यस, एज अ कंट्री वी आर ग्रोइंग सर, सो आई डोंट सी एज अ कंट्री वी आर ग्रोइंग, तो चल ही रहा है सर, एवरीथिंग इज गुड. श्योर पीपल पुट इन अ लॉट ऑफ एफर्ट. आप जौहरी सर को ही देख लो. आई वुड लक्ष्मण जी, प्लीज यू रेज योर हैंड. आई जस्ट लेट मी कंप्लीट. आप जौहरी सर को देख लो सर. ही इज देयर representing India at amazing levels of forums, and he's pushing the quality level, he's pushing QCI to have more third-party approved programs. He's pushing the country towards various standards. A lot of standards that you see floated today, he's been instrumental in laying the foundation stones for a lot of standards when he was the head within the QCI. So that's a lot of effort that sir has been putting, and we will reap a lot of fruits in coming days. Sorry, sir.
Ma'am, when it comes to the climate change, suppose if there is an organization, as you said, that it has to identify the issues, risks, and what will be the problems that a company will be facing due to climate change, so many things. I feel that the company has to have some information in terms of like meteorological information, like after 5 years, how much temperature will be there, will be the ambient temperature, how much will be the flood quantity, in which area, because if the flood is going to happen in North India and my company is in South India or maybe in Singapore, I may not bother about it. So I feel this meteorological information is very, very critical for the company to do a proper and optimized way of climate change assessment. So do you have any inputs on this, madam, like how the companies can get this and where we can get it and which is the authentic source and to how far this information is available in the public domain or some particular government department? So or even in case outside India, the authority will be different. So do you have any thoughts on this, ma'am?
Sir, what generally the way I collect information for talking to on this platform itself is, I think there are different, these ministries are there. So under the ministries also surveys keep happening and they publish the datas. Right, sir. It starts with the Pollution Control Board, CPCB website, portal it starts with. So different agencies are there, and UNDP and UNEP under the United Nations and World Bank, all these people are on a monitoring mode all the time. You can correct me otherwise, because they have the live data about the country, any corner or any place, they have it. They get the surveys done, and all this is part of their job. So I think getting information is, and that too in this information era, it is very easy, sir. It is very easy.
In fact, I'll add, when we go for the consent part, we go to a lot of departments and get. So like, for example, you will have to take a irrigation NOC, and when you do a irrigation NOC for a particular plant, they come and check and they mark out HFL, high flood line and low flood line. They actually see, and they see how it will impact you and whether you're in that board. They look at whether you're about 500 meters from a particular river edge, and so your regulations are different, your plinth levels are different, and so on and so forth, and like even clearances from forest. But the point is that we don't redo these surveys, or we do not redo it again and again to check if that bar has moved anywhere from there.
Absolutely, sir.
Initially,
Yes.
it is done 200%.
Yes, EIA, what is that EIA? Environmental Impact Assessment, what is done? It is done only once in the lifetime of the
Correct.
organization.
Correct.
Just to get some approval. And after that, you forget about it. You don't even consider the different environmental or the demographic changes, what has been happened, or the impact of you on others also. We need to do that, right?
Ma'am, last point, my strong feeling is that the benefit of this exercise will very heavily depend on how accurate the predictions are. So, for example, I will tell you one example. The 28th June, whatever all of us faced in the morning, the rain and things like that, I don't have to explain. I just want to know, has anybody predicted this and informed the companies? And was there any, if the government agencies were able to, first of all, predict it, and how much before they were able to predict it? So these all raises so many questions. Why I'm saying that? Because if I do ISO climate change management without this data, I think I'm just doing only paperwork.
Sir, I think
And I think-
meteorological department would have sent, right? If you're on the coastal line, they usually
ma'am,
send
how
it to
many-
all
sorry.
the vulnerable communities. Such things
Sorry
are
to-
happening.
Sorry to interrupt you, madam. You know, and I know that how Delhi was on that day, and how much was predicted earlier, and when it was predicted, and how accurately
So
it was predicted.
the question is here, I think it is the infrastructure problem also, if you take, because the changes in the infrastructure, what you have done to the city, the waterlogging is not the problem of the weather department, right? Because in our country, everything
Lakshman sir,
happens parallelly. None of the departments are correlated. None of them share information. That is yet to happen in this country. So I think that is how even in Bangalore we face the same problem.
but ma'am, I'll tell you one thing which we should be, looking at very strongly. The Met department and the predictions in the US are absolutely bang on. And they can predict, right to the minute when it'll start raining, when it'll go. And I assure you, I've been personally, monitoring AccuWeather, and you look at your city for AccuWeather, it shows a dry monsoon, and we are facing a dry monsoon. We are not seeing that kind of downpours as we would see normally. And I think we're getting better every day, because that is something I strongly monitor on a regular basis, and I think we are getting there. We're a little slower. Our equipments obviously are not as state of the art. I think that's why we miss our predictions, but I think we're getting there.
Yes.
A lot of geographical data in terms of your satellite imaging has improved. Earlier, years and years, you would see old images. Today, within 4 months, you're seeing a 4 month old. If you go to Google Maps and see a satellite view, you'll see a 4 month old image of your own building. So so things are changing, which would never change in years together. So I think there's a lot of things happening, and we'll get there
Yes,
eventually.
yes. It's happening, sir, because I think means I have somebody in a senior position in the weather department,
Wow.
and that is the person keeps telling us, and it has been accurate. Their predictions have been accurate, and I think they have this privacy, this policy, and they don't share it with everybody. Even when I ask, will it rain? So the answer is, don't ask me. It is a secret. So it is shared with only the concerned, and they will publish it, and only that much is published. I think the required departments are getting the information. Our disaster management has improved a lot, sir. We don't see the casualty in a cyclone or cyclone as we used to see once upon a time.
I mean, India, the kind of population we deal with is
Yes.
huge, and we are so densely populated in public places that a wrong information going out could be catastrophic. It would, more than the environmental damage, you would have other damages like stampedes and all. So I'm sure these data are sensitive, and they use it with a lot of with a pinch of salt, I'm sure.
Yes.
And something very interesting here for an airlines. Now we realized after this recent Singapore Airlines incident, where one life also was lost basically because of one of the heaviest turbulences. And it was something like, I mean, so climate change, I think this is a fantastic example, that mid-flight turbulence, the incidents have gone up drastically, and there is a prediction that you'll have not a single flight in the next 2 years which will not face turbulence basically. So look at the impact of climate change on safety of air passengers. I mean, this is something which needs to be factored in by, though they already have factored in, no doubt about it. Unfortunately, now this brings me to what Mr. Lakshmanan asked. That prediction also becomes important here, and unfortunately, a kind of most of the turbulences we face at this moment are not predictable. They don't show on the weather radars. They just happen. Weather radar shows something, and the pilots do take some kind of corrective or preventive actions, but But the kind of turbulence we face now is just abrupt. It just comes from literally thin air. And this was the most recent example of how climate change is affecting businesses and overall safety of people. And how this has to be factored in as a kind of, as you rightly said, something which is, the context of the current environment, the context of the organization. Like for an airlines, it's a very vital context.
Very fine example, sir.
I mean, losing a life in turbulence, casualty is something which
No,
I mean,
what you said is very true because now I could. Means very recently I went from Bangalore to Hyderabad, and as you said, the distance is very small, and it is we don't have any great. Means it was a calm. It was summer, and yes, we literally did not were allowed to take off our seat belts throughout the flight.
Yeah, it's very common, ma'am. I mean, in
Very,
so
very
many
common.
flights,
Yes.
you are not allowed to remove your,
Yes.
unfasten your seat belt.
Yes. And that is a big discomfort for many people, that seat belt.
And unfortunately, there are no TV debates on these topics. It is a tragedy of
Absolutely,
this
sir.
country is this. There are no TV debates on these compelling issues, which are apocalyptic matters, basically.
Yes.
There
Very
are no
true.
TV debates. You see the kind of debates we are having. Go crazy.
Another thing is that when we are talking about flight, in the international flight tickets nowadays, there is a statement is coming: calculated average carbon dioxide emissions
Yes.
this much of figure per kg per person. That itself shows that no, somewhere we have to begin, and that begin has started. It's a long way to go. Things will happen as Mr. Kataria was saying. Things will happen, but we
Yes.
begin. So let's see, we all fingers crossed in a positive way. We are looking forward that to have such things, go at least to a tune of 40 to 50% in the coming
Yes.
10 years. Let's see.
Yes.
It will happen.
And
Because
that
lot of
that
awareness session is
that carbon emission, what you're mentioning, is used as a marketing tool by the airlines. If you see that, when you book a ticket, it shows there that, this flight, this is the emission. And based on that, many people opt for it, that they would like to not contribute to the emissions. So even if it is a lighter on a higher priced, they buy it. So this is how
Right,
the branding is happening. Thank you, sir. That was a wonderful discussion. And when Vaibhav asked me about the time slot, I was telling him, okay, 1 hour. Then he said he was doubtful. And now it's 2 hours and we are still going on. That's great. I think Vaibhav is very happy.
Yes, ma'am. Very nice.
Yeah,
So-
it's been a very, very, very meaningful discussion and a lot of good things. So you should come on sessions and take sessions more often, ma'am.
Yeah, Vaibhav, I actually, I should tell you, he has a wonderful, good patience and resilient levels. He keeps on asking me, this week, next week. And this time when he asked, I said, okay, my Saturday was free. I said, I immediately agreed. Then I did not know what was the topic. Then I usually would like to talk something where, I can take away more because all of you contribute to it. So I become enriched.
It's very humble for you to say so. You're very
No,
learned, and
sir.
it's always pleasure listening to you. And we always have a lot of takeaway from you. So
No,
it's
sir.
in forums like this, the beauty of forums like this is that you get to learn, and a lot of people I know fill CPDs out of our forum. So that's also a very good thing, and it helps the industry. And Vaibhav, as you pointed out, he's our single man who propels this entire system. And boss is the one who's propelling this entire engine. He's the force behind
Yes.
pushing Vaibhav to achieve this.
Yes.
So I'm
Yes.
sure it's been very, very, very nice. Over to you, Vaibhav.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. So if anyone have any question till that time, till the end. So I think, ma'am, there is no more questions. So can we move ahead, ma'am?
Yes. Yes.
So ICS is pleased to provide you all its research and development, integrated management system, QMS, CMS, and OHSS, excellence in education management, ISO made easy in Gujarati, Marathi, Telugu, and Hindi. For reading any of the above book, please contact Ms. Sushma Kindalkar on the given contact details. Feedback form, please register on www.sadgunsang.org and go in your login and give your valued feedback to us. So thank you, Smita ma'am. Thank you all the participants and delegates who were part of our today's session. So now it's time to officially close the session. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.